Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Flint. I'm Jim Newtown, your worship associate today. If you are new to us, let me tell you a bit about us. We're an inclusive church that welcomes people who are LGBTQ and everyone, no matter what their income or education. You are welcome here, no matter what spirituality means to you. Personally, I love this church because it allows me to be a member without having to agree to a predetermined set of beliefs, because it allows me to belong to a group where we each try to encourage each other to be the best individuals we can be. And finally, because this church also works to help people outside of our group in the community, especially through various social justice issues. If you would like more information about UUism or our congregation, please feel free to contact one of our ministers or our office. That information can be found at uuflint.org. And now some announcements. February is Black History Month, and our church proudly proclaims that Black history is America's history. Show your support for Black Lives Matter and make a difference. Please join the members of Flint's Woodside Church on the county courthouse lawn every Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. to support the Black Lives Matter movement. Woodside has invited us to join them in this persistent, insistent witness. So let's add our presence to this effort. Fight injustice and your winter doldrums at the same time. If it is below 20 degrees, they do not meet. See your e-update for details or call Reverend Jerry. UUs, please take action to help make our state capital safe from gun violence. The U.S. Capitol and 32 states prohibit all firearms in their state capitals, but not Michigan. Democratic state representatives are working to change this and have introduced legislation calling for a full ban on firearms in the Capitol building. Please see this week's e-update for details and call your state representative to show your support for this common sense legislation. Your call can make a difference. Join us for coffee hour after the service on Zoom. The ID can be found on our website, on our Facebook page, and in the e-update. We will now begin our service with a prelude by Jennifer Howard, followed by a video hymn, courtesy of the UU Foothills Congregation of Fort Collins, Colorado, and Reverend Christopher Watkins Lamb, and our prelude. We light this chalice to move us from untruth to truth, to move us from ignorance to wisdom, to move us from animosity to love, to move us from bondage to freedom. May we dedicate ourselves before this light to affirm and practice love, justice, and reason, today and in the days to come. Please feel free to join me at home in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
Good morning. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart.
Our meditation today is a poem by Langston Hughes, the famous African-American poet who gave voice to the plight of Black Americans. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must bring back our mighty dream again. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be the great, strong land of love, where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again. Blessed be.
About 300 years ago, the very Reverend Jonathan Swift, the author of Gulliver's Travels, worked to free Ireland from its terrible poverty and from the sometimes lying politicians that helped create that poverty. Swift wrote, "Falsehood flies, and the truth comes limping after it, so that when men come to be undeceived, it's too late. The jest is over. The tale hath had its effect. It is like a physician who hath found out an infallible medicine after the patient is dead." A recent study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology shows that little has changed in 300 years. Researchers found that false news travels far faster and extends further than the truth on social media. This very large scientific study on the way stories spread online found that falsehoods were 70% more likely to be retweeted on Twitter than the truth. And true stories took 6 times longer to reach people than the falsehoods. The researchers concluded from extensive analysis of tweets from a 10-year period that the dissemination of false news is mainly driven by the love of novelty. People are more likely to repeat news that surprises them, and false stories tend to be more surprising and novel compared with the truth. The results of the study are published in the journal Science and in many other places on the internet, where they are very often prefaced with the words of Jonathan Swift, "Falsehood flies, and the truth comes limping after it."
I could while away the hours, confiding in the flowers, consulting with the rain. Oh, my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts are busy hatching, if I only had a brain. I would rattle any riddle to any individual in trouble or in pain. With my thoughts I'd be thinking I could be another Lincoln if I only had a brain. Oh, I could tell you why the ocean is a shore. I could think of things I'd never thought before, and then I would sit and think some more. I would not be such a nothing, my head all full of stuffing, my heart all full of pain. I could dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain. Oh, I could tell you why the ocean is a shore. I would think of things I'd never thought before, and then I would sit and think some more. I would not be such a nothing, my head all full of stuffing, my heart all full of pain. With my thoughts I'd be thinking I could be another Lincoln if I only had a brain. With my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts are busy hatching if I only had a brain. I could dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain. Thanks, guys.
In 1998, Lynn and I lived just 3 miles from the town of Salem, Massachusetts, also known to many by its money-making, tourist-attracting nickname, Witch City. When we first moved there, we were perplexed by the traffic jams we encountered. What is going on, we would ask, as we sat in traffic in and around this small seaside town. We soon learned that the city of Salem attracted 1 million tourists each year, tourists who were fascinated by the idea of witches. The crowds and the traffic were irritating, but not just because such things are always irritating, but because it wasn't clear how many of the witch tourists knew or even cared about the terrible events that made Salem synonymous with witches. Did they care that long ago many innocent people, mostly women, were falsely accused of witchcraft and cruelly executed? Executed by the Christians of that day because they foolishly believed that witches were bringing evil to their town. I'm sure that tourists come to Salem for many different reasons, but they didn't look like they were on a pilgrimage to a holy site commemorating a shameful event. It was witch tourism that gave Salem its nickname, Witch City, and that tourism makes big money that local officials and businesses love. Even the police department's logo includes a witch, and the local high school sports teams are the Witches. Every Halloween, as many as 250,000 people visit for the event called Haunted Happenings. Revelers dress as zombies, witches, and space aliens. Families take ghost tours and wander around a psychic fair, costume balls, and a film festival. They buy witch cookies from street vendors near the statue of Samantha, the witch from the TV show Bewitched. It's all run by a public-private partnership called Destination Salem. Now, forgive my assumption that everyone has seen it, but remember in the movie Jaws, when the mayor of the town doesn't want people to know the truth that there is a shark lurking in the water, just offshore. A shark lurking offshore can really ruin a town's tourism business, so he wanted to keep it quiet. It's a little like that in Salem. The businesses of Witch City may not hide it, but neither do they advertise the truth of exactly what happened in Salem. They don't advertise the senseless deaths of 20 people and the imprisonment of many more. They certainly don't advertise that there is nothing reasonable about calling Salem Witch City. There never were any self-proclaimed witches in Salem that helped Satan bring Indian attacks, crop failures, and sickness. There were just young girls who were fascinated by the tall tales of voodoo magic they heard from a slave, and also some fearful adults who responded to their frontier hardships by hanging helpless, innocent people. The truth, lurking not in the water, but in the history of Salem, is the fact that people are often ignorant and irrational, and that is a dangerous thing. Such truths don't sell many witch cookies. We may shake our heads at these deluded people, those of 1692 and those of 2021. Those who so long ago jailed and hung their fellow villagers for no reason, and those who today profit from those tragic mistakes made 328 years ago. We may shake our heads at such irrationality and forget it for a while, but then we hear stories like that of U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who believes that the California wildfires are started by a space laser controlled by Jewish bankers. Many people believe her, it seems. The so-called Age of Reason supposedly started 400 years ago. But the Salem witch trials happened during that Age of Reason. And now, so many years later, large numbers of people don't seem very reasonable. Truly, falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after. Sometimes it seems that reasonable people can only hope to help the truth limp more quickly. Our service today is the second in a series of 3 about our congregation's motto, Love, Justice, Reason in Faith. Today I'd like to talk about reason and why it is such an important part of Unitarian Universalism. I think the times we live in give us a special opportunity to convince others that reason is a holy thing indeed. And I know the faculty of reason doesn't sound very religious. Reason sometimes has the connotation of being cold, hard-hearted, boring, and too materialistic to be spiritual. For thousands of years, the Christian religion put its faith in divine revelation, not reason. God putatively talked directly to the prophets and then later through his incarnation in Jesus, and few worried that that was a reasonable belief. Some of the early church fathers even admitted that Christianity was offensive to natural reason, and they said that was a good thing. Tertullian, way back in the 2nd century, proclaimed, "I believe because it is absurd." Others felt reason was more important, but the bishops and the bosses of the bishops did the reasoning, not the people. And then came a special type of so-called heretic who wanted their religion to be reasonable as well as spiritual. They wanted a good reason for why people were choked or burned to death or imprisoned for not believing Jesus was exactly like God. They wanted a good reason for why people were killed because they didn't want the Pope to be the only spokesperson for their faith. They wanted some good reasons for all this killing and violence committed in the name of Jesus, the Prince of Peace, which seemed very ironic and very unreasonable. It is this thirst, this passion for reason that makes us believe that using your brain to unravel the riddles of life is not just important, but is a holy thing. In our faith, we even light a flame when we proclaim the goodness and power of reason. And then, at the end of the service, when we extinguish the flame, we say, "We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth." Ours is an uncommon faith. The reasonable truth may move slowly, but sometimes it wins the race. In 1989, Al Gore was traveling all over the nation with a humble flip chart presentation about how our planet was getting much, much warmer. By the time they made a movie of his presentation, he had already presented it over 1,000 times. After narrowly losing his bid to become president, Al Gore grew a beard, and he retreated from public view for a while. But then he returned to his passion, saving the earth from its sometimes reckless inhabitants. He returned to doing a show that presented unsettling facts about the health of our planet. He showed boring charts with alarming facts on them, facts so alarming that any boredom was replaced by curiosity and great concern. Then in 2006, a famous director did a documentary on Gore's simple truth-telling show entitled An Inconvenient Truth. It won 2 Academy Awards. It didn't make much money, but of course that wasn't the goal. And now, 15 years later, the phrase global warming is known throughout the world. A majority of people now believe there is a climate crisis, and many people are doing something about it. Al Gore's movie about the irrefutable, reasonable facts helped shape the modern climate movement that we know today. The resulting climate science has made major advances, helping us better understand the challenges we face. In many parts of the world, renewable energy such as solar and wind is now cheaper than fossil fuel-based electricity. Electric cars are even becoming more mainstream. Albert Arnold Gore Jr. put the reasonable and inconvenient truth right in front of people, and it's working. Chalk up a victory for reason. And yes, such victories may seem to limp along at times, but neither are they stopping. I think it's very likely that a church, a religion, that lights a candle for reason and puts that word into their motto will likely be noticed in our present age of unreason. We didn't ask for this darkness so that our light would be more visible, but it happened. And now we have a special opportunity to shine our light so others can see. This is the one and only good thing about the recent resurgence of foolish, deadly, irrational behavior. It makes many people hunger for the simple truth. 328 years ago, the people of Massachusetts and all of the other colonies looked at the terrible things that they had done in Salem, and so they changed their court procedures. The new procedures guaranteed the right to legal representation, the right to cross-examine one's accuser, and the presumption of innocence rather than of guilt. The renowned historian George Lincoln Burr said, "Salem was the rock upon which the colonists' theocracy broke." And of special interest to Unitarian Universalists, the horror of the witch trials set the Puritans on the track of becoming more reasonable. In the many years following the witch trials, some people and their ministers started asking questions that the Orthodox felt were inconvenient questions. Questions like, did Jesus really walk on the water? Was the doctrine of the Trinity, for which so many people fought and died, just a human invention? In the light of reason, it sure looked like it. And then, in 1832, 140 years after the witch trials, hundreds of the oldest Puritan churches in New England broke away and became Unitarian. They became Unitarian for one basic reason. They wanted more reason in their religion. A religion, or any institution, without its reason, soon shows in dramatic, frightening fashion what can happen when the passions outrun reason. The unreasoned hatred of QAnon, the Proud Boys, and of a president of the United States have become the new Salem witch trials. Like the witch trials, they show how precious and rare reason can be. So precious and rare, in fact, that it needs to be proclaimed as something holy, perhaps even worshiped. And I know some UUs don't care for the word worship, and I understand that. But please consider this. The word of the year in 2016, according to the Oxford Dictionary, was post-truth. Post-truth, as in we live in a post-truth world where objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. There are people in our post-truth world who believe the COVID vaccine is spiked with microchip tracking devices. The prevalence of such stories may create in us a great reverence for holy reason. So, in the spirit of creating reverence for reason, let us write a letter, at least in our imaginations, to Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Dear Representative Greene, the wildfires in California aren't caused by laser-wielding Jewish bankers. If you were familiar with what happened in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692, you would know that Jews are today's counterpart for the innocents of Salem who were unjustly blamed when things went wrong. Miss Greene, the fires in the West are caused by man-made global warming and are getting worse because of human ignorance and their unwillingness to be reasonable. You see, being ignorant and unreasonable is much more dangerous than Jews with space lasers. And the crop failures blamed on witches over 300 years ago, they are now a modern global warming reality caused by the same lack of human reason that killed the innocent people of Salem. We beg you, Marjorie, if your head is not full of stuffing, please use your brain. And now, may the power of love, justice, and especially reason be with you. Sincerely, the UU Congregation of Flint. Foolish, deadly irrationality has taken many forms down through history. 20 people died in Salem because they were thought to be witches who caused a bad harvest. Somewhere between 40 and 60,000 women in Europe were killed for much the same baseless charge, witchcraft. 6 million Jews were killed because of Hitler's big lie that they caused all of Germany's problems. And now, on a smaller scale admittedly, our nation's capital was stormed and people died because of the obvious big lie that the election was rigged. One summer day, Lynn and I were in downtown Salem, and we gave in to the crazy commercialization of 20 senseless deaths. It's important to note, it is a commercialization that most modern-day witches find especially insulting. Those who take part in today's Wiccan movement study the healing arts, and they revel in the mystery and magic of our world. It seems they just aren't into causing crop failures. Lynn and I went through the Witch Museum and a few of the shops where you could get at least 20 different witch-related t-shirts. It was pretty much as we expected. Little mention was made of the human stupidity and then the greed that led to such a great chance to make some money. It looked like the mayor of the Jaws movie had won. It appeared that the townspeople and the millions of tourists didn't know about the shark and thought it was safe to get back into the water. Luckily, in the midst of all this, we found a place of truth in Salem. When you do your pilgrimage to the many historic UU sites in New England, and you are in Salem, just go to the bewitched statue of Elizabeth Montgomery on her broom, put that statue at your back, and walk south towards the river. In a block and a half, well away from the hubbub of the t-shirt shops, you will see to your left the old Bearing Point Cemetery, and beside it, the Salem Witch Trials Memorial. We found it accidentally, really. We didn't know there was a nationally acclaimed memorial to the victims surrounded by the tourist traps and the traffic jams. You'll see the memorial in the slideshow that accompanies our postlude music today. It is striking in its simplicity. Just 3 stone walls with cantilevered stone ledges jutting out of the walls with the victims' names on them. As you enter the memorial, the actual words of the victims, denying any guilt and begging for their lives, are carved in the stones at your feet. My life now lies in your hands. God knows I am innocent of such wickedness. On my dying day, I am no witch. It is a holy site, really. It commemorates a tragedy, and its object of worship is the power of reason that would have saved their lives. During the trial, Cotton Mather, down in Harvard, had told the judges, "You can't use stories of apparitions of the devil in a court of law." He called it spectral evidence and said it was not for the courtroom. But the judges in Salem didn't listen to his reasoning. The sadness you feel while reading the names of the dead stands in stark contrast to the carnival atmosphere that is just a block away. It is a contrast that makes the absurdity of their deaths all the more apparent and painful. I'm sure that many a witch tourist has decided to go through the simple, unimposing, probably boring memorial just so they could say they did it all in Salem. I have to hope, I have to believe that at least some of them are awakened to the truth hidden by the novelty of the Salem Witch and Ghost Festival. Right there in front of them, right there in front of all those haunted happening tourists, is the inconvenient truth about what happens when people look for evil in others instead of looking for it in themselves. In the years following our discovery of the memorial, Lynn would visit it frequently with her church youth groups. They needed to learn why UUs revere and perhaps even worship reason. Our country is critically short on rationality at the moment, and America still is, as the poet Langston Hughes put it, the land that never has been yet. America never has been free of unreasoned hatred and bigotry, but we have seen the many victories of reason and of its fellows, love and justice. And with faith in their power, we will move on to the next victory. Such victories, of course, are never easy. So we need to rally everyone who refuses to live in a post-truth age of unreason. So this is the time when a minister of the church, at the end of the service, does an altar call. As you might expect, a UU altar call is very simple and unimposing, and it goes like this. If you want to learn more about Unitarian Universalism, or maybe you already feel you are ready to join, please give Lynn or me a call. We hope more people will join this congregation for the sake of becoming a part of our healing, helping community. And also, frankly, we also want to count you as one of us. When a person commits to our faith, they bring power to create change just with their presence. And then, when someone asks, just how many people are there in this religion of yours that reveres reason as though it were some kind of God, we can truthfully say, there's a bunch of us. Thank you.
Thank you for the many ways you support this congregation as we promote the values of love, justice, and reason in this community. Your generous offering makes our life-affirming and justice-centered message possible. You can make your offering at uuflint.org or by sending a check to the church office. Thank you.
The blessing of truth be upon us. The power of love direct us and sustain us. And may the peace of this community preserve our going out and our coming in.
And now, let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the power of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again.